Okay, here we are in Phoenix, Arizona, and Pete is going to tell us a little bit. He's representing JVC. You want to tell us your position and what you're going to tell us?
Absolutely. I'm Pete Kramlich. I'm with JVC Pro. I'm the Rocky Mountain District Sales Manager, and we're here attending our Pro HD seminar. And the building blocks that we want to talk about right now are high-def resolutions. Most people will refer to high-def as 1080p in its purest sense. That's 1920 by 1080 progressive scan, meaning every single line is scanned, as opposed to interlaced, where you get every other line, two fields make a frame. So a lot of people will say 1080p is pure HD. Right now what we've got on capture is either 720p or 1080i. 720p is going to be 1280 by 720. Every single line is scanned, and in our case it's 60 times a second. That's what P stands for progressive. The other format is going to be 1080i, which is, in theory, 1920 by 1080 interlaced, meaning 540 lines per field, two fields make a frame. When you look at display devices, which have outpaced the capture devices, you go down to a store and you're going to find 1080p display devices. Those are capable of 1920 by 1080 every single line, progressive scan. When you look at the math involved with 720p and 1080i, there's a lot of confusion. What it boils down to is most of the HD display devices these days are progressive scan. LCDs, plasmas, projectors are all progressive scan. When you take a 1080i image and display it on a 1080p device, what you have is what's called the de-interlacing process. So you take these two fields and make a progressive scan 1080p image. There's an element called the Kell factor, which is during the de-interlacing process, on average, depending on how much motion there is in the video, you're going to lose approximately 30% of your optical resolution. When you take a 720p image, which is 1280 by 720 progressive scan, and display it on a 1080p device, you're actually just scaling it, but you don't have to go through the de-interlacing process. So the math is a little bit simpler. And what it boils down to, whether it's the capture with compression, whether it's MPEG-2 or MPEG-4, the simpler the algorithm, the better the image is going to look at the end of the day.
Real simply, for our listeners, if you were going in and you were buying a camera today for the consumer model, what resolution should they buy and look for?
Well, one of the keys is actually going to be the workflow. You want to make sure that the format that you're going to get on the capture, whether it's the 720p or the 1080i, matches your workflow and your destination. Okay, the mathematics that we've chosen are based on 720p. It's a set of simpler algorithms, from capture to working with it to the display. The 1080i is, a lot of people think higher resolution, but when you're doing 1280 by 720, 60 frames a second, it's a lot easier to convert to 1080i and display on 1080p rather than if you start with an interlaced and try and create a progressive image. So I would suggest looking heavily at the 720p, but most importantly it's the workflow and the mathematics and compatibility, because there's on HDV, which is the compressed 720p, or 1080i, it's a matter of compatibility with all of your products, and the 1080i will not play on the 720p products, and the 720p will not play on the 1080i products.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.